How you doing? Welcome to Community Crossfire, another point of view. I'm your host, Norman Oliver. I hope you've been enjoying this month. We've been talking a lot about Black History Month. Well, that's all we've been talking about, Black History Month. And I want to thank Sylvester Wolford for all of his effort. I mean, this guy is like a walking encyclopedia, you know. I mean, and the information he's been giving us has been tremendous. Tonight, I have two guys who I have an awful lot of respect for, especially when it comes to Newcastle County Black history, especially when it comes to East Side, South Wilmington, West Side, Dunleave, some of these areas. That'd be Kenyon Camper, Mr. Herman Holloway Jr. But before I go to them, I got a few announcements. Please join for a special presentation and book signing by Jefferson Morley off the snowstorm in August. That will be Monday, 5:30, reception, 6 p.m. Presentation. This will be at the Carville State Building. So make sure you stop by there tomorrow from 5:30 until have a book signing. Also, Howard High School Technology Alumni Basketball Scholarship Fundraiser. We're accepting teams, join teams, represent classes. And this will be next March the 2nd, games 12 from the 70s, 80s, 90s, 2000s, 2:30, Howard staff versus students. Team entry, $150. Game entry, $3, whatever. For more information, call Ms. Gladney at 302-571-5770, or Tina Gladney of DeVoe Tech School. The Harriet Tubman Sunday March, March the 10th. This will be the Harriet Tubman Underground Railroad motorcycle caravan from Centerville to Wilmington Riverfront, 2-mile walk and run starting at Devereaux Park Riverfront. Then we got the Zeta Phi Beta Sorority Incorporated Epsilon Rho Zeta Youth Auxiliary presents the Cupcake Final Womanhood Higher Teens. This will be Sunday, March the 17th, 3 o'clock in the afternoon at Hotel DuPont. And also what I wanted to say is I've been given the opportunity, guys, to talk to Jim Gilliam Sr. What he was telling me that he was one of the, he's a Buffalo Soldier, and I didn't know that.
I wasn't aware of that either.
Yeah, and I know him and Sylvester Wolford has been talking about school, what's that, 107C? Up in Hocassin.
Yes.
And you guys could probably tell me a little bit more about that. And also I wanted to say a happy birthday to Dr. Clendon. How you doing? Happy birthday to you. And also I met a young lady from Baltimore. She said she watched this show and she just appreciates the history that we're giving them. Ladies and gentlemen, I hope you tune in. I hope you have some good questions and tell us some stuff. And we're going to engage tonight. We're going to talk about East Side. We're going to talk about South Wilmington. We're going to talk about Dunleave, Milford. I mean, the Milford's 11 or whatever. I remember reading that book. So how you guys doing?
Fine.
So Kenyon, I'll start with you. Just tell me a little history about Howard High School or East Side in your own kind of way, because I'm going to try to step back tonight and absorb some of this stuff, and I'm going to chime in, and Herm, you guys could talk, and whenever I want to throw something out, I'm going to throw it out. Even we're going to talk about some old school politics, and you know, when you talk about some of the guys, who did the sit-in over there on 9th Street, Dutch Burton and all those guys. All right, go ahead, Kenyon, I'm sorry.
Okay, before the Civil War, there was virtually no education for African Americans here in Delaware. Most of the education that was available was done by the Quakers, for instance. When the Civil War, which ended in 1865, started in 1861 and ended in 1865, a General Oliver Otis Howard, who was a general in the war, lost part of his right arm in a battle in New England. He was appointed by the president to head the Freedmen's Bureau, and what he did in 1867, 2 years later, started what is now known as Howard University. He also started Freedmen's Hospital, and the first 4 students at Howard University were 4 Caucasian daughters of some of the members of the Board of Trustees of Howard University. In many instances, when institutions started, even Howard School, when institutions started for blacks or involving blacks, there were whites who had the head positions that were in charge because of the fact that you had to get started. So what happened was William Poole Bancroft, who was a great textile manufacturer, and he had his factory over in the area which is now Rockford Park. And what happened is one of his daughters married, one of his sons married one of Howard's daughter. So he came to Wilmington and gave $5,000 to the city of Wilmington to help with the education of minorities. And I think that the city put the other $5,000 to it.
Let me stop you there. Is that how Bancroft School, is that named after that Bancroft?
That's, yes.
And the Howard High School is named after that one?
What happened was he was Howard University.
What about Howard High School?
Yes, that's named after the same
thing?
fellow. Same fellow.
And also, Herman, let me ask you a question. I'm going to jump around if you guys don't mind. Winchester. I mean, I remember Mr. Winchester from Southbridge.
Right.
Was he elected official?
Yes, Jim Winchester was the first black state representative when the Republicans controlled the city of Wilmington. He was a Republican.
I didn't know that.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Bus
Yeah.
Hopkins was a Republican. John Hopkins was a city councilman.
The fellow on
Bell
Lumber Street.
was one of the doctors was a councilman. Was it Buddy Sewell? I'm thinking Buddy Sewell.
He probably was.
I think Buddy Sewell was a city councilman, Republican. See, Republican.
So a lot of blacks were
Wilmington-
Republicans then.
Wilmington
Yes.
was Republican.
Yes.
Wow.
Yes.
They controlled everything.
Yeah.
Back in the day here in the city of Wilmington. And this is how Maynard became so powerful and strong up through the ranks. of
Maynard
Republican-
Jackson.
Jones.
Maynard Jones. So
Jones.
people who are watching,
And Ray
right?
Evans.
See, some people who are watching, right? They tell me they don't know, so we gotta
right.
give them.
Break it down.
We gotta kind of break it down.
Well, see, President Abraham Lincoln was a Republican, and back in the day, the Republicans were the ones who were fighting for civil rights and so forth for the blacks.
And your father, or you lost your mic?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. While he's putting his mic on, what vividly do you remember about the East Side there? When we talk about that,
Well,
I know we had Dr. Brown over there, right?
yes, 824 Lombard. Uh-huh.
Dr. Gawns.
Yeah, Dr. Goins.
What was his
Dr.
specialty?
Albert.
Dr. Albert.
Dr. Albert. We had two Dr. Alberts, senior and junior.
And they lived on the East Side.
Yes, right there, 10th and French.
Wow.
They
called that executive row or something. Remember,
Yeah.
all the doctors were up there.
Yeah.
Across from the Monday Club, all them big houses
Wow.
there.
He had
I didn't know. I don't know that. So that's
Dr.
what I'm asking.
Costin.
and Dr.
And one of them
Conwell
had
Barrington.
the drugstore right there at 9th and French. He
And
had
he was all owned by blacks.
all
Yes,
blacks.
yeah,
all
it was almost like a Gold Coast, especially that 8th and 9th 100 blocks and
Yes,
700
yes.
blocks too, because
Yes.
in the 700 block we had 2 3-story houses opposite each other. One was 709, I think the other was 706, and one was the old St. Michael's Nursery, which I was alumni of, and then the Crossfire was the church, which is in a 3-story house. Later on, the church was moved into another 3-story house down on 8th Street. Near 8th and Locust.
And
something
right
like that.
down French Street there also, was it the spot that was the Longshoremen's Hall before they built, Skinny
Oh,
Dip
wow.
built the new hall?
So
Spot.
where was it at?
It was on French Street.
It was
Wow.
707 French. In fact, if you go
That's where
over,
everybody hung out.
if you ever go to over to the city council building now,
Wow.
city county building now, you will see pictures from the Semensky collection. This is a young fellow who had a brown camera, a brownie camera, and he just took pictures along the east side of what was happening, and most of it involved blacks because the neighborhood was changing. And they're on view right now, and on exhibit right now for the whole month. I
And
assume.
Gray's funeral parlor. Gray,
Yeah.
Buddy Gray, who used to have the drill teams and all
Yeah, I
that.
know
with,
Buddy
with,
Gray.
With, well, you thought you know his son.
Oh, okay. So I
This
didn't
is
know
his
that.
father.
Wow.
His father, Buddy Gray, was the one with the Elks Home guys, was with the Elks. And they had right next to the Hopkins movie on French Street was an Elks Home. And they used to have the parades and things. Groups and bands and stepping groups would come in from all over the country to have a big band. Elks would have a big band and parade and all that, and drill teams and all that. And Buddy Gray's father, not Buddy Gray out at West Center City or just retired.
Wow,
from there.
wow.
His dad was the one that organized. You're talking about a mentor and organizing young men and young women. He had 2 or 3 different age brackets from the young to the older guys. Tommy McIntyre and them, the Levinettes, if you remember them guys and whatnot.
What was the 11X?
That they were drill teams.
Wow.
But these were the older guys of the community. Lee Foster and all those guys. A lot of those guys have passed now. But they took. I tell you who used to be with the girl drill team, Betty Lewis. Betty Lewis down in Hurley.
Yeah.
Oh man, Betty was bad. Betty was the captain of one of them groups.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, if you just tuned in, I hope you're enjoying the show. We're talking to Herman Holloway Jr. and Kenyon Camper, and we're going to have a wealth of information this evening. And as a matter of fact, when we do open the lines, I'm hoping people could call in and add to the conversation. You know, and when you talk about the Elks, I know my sister had called in the other day. I know my grandfather, Norman Hollis, they called him Barry. He was really active down there. I mean, I was a kid, but I mean, I heard some of the
Stephanie's grandpop, Pop, Stephanie's father.
Wow.
Stephanie Bowden's daddy, Pop Bowden.
Okay.
Pop played in the Elks home band. And his thing was he had this gravy, you know, them big old scooter type things that you carry that big drum on. He had the big drum that he rolled down the street playing on in the parade. And it would all end up down after years of they moved down on the east side. The drill teams and everything, that would become the grandstand and all that, and then everybody would just party all the rest of the weekend down there at the Elks home on 11th Street.
What role did the YMCA on Warner Street? What role did
Okay, here's how the YMCA got started. There was no YMCA for blacks, just the one there at 11th and Washington. So what happened on January the 1st, 1935, Bethel Church had bought a Lutheran church, I believe it was, and caught on fire and was destroyed. And H. Fletcher Brown, who was a philanthropist, came to Bethel and said, I will build your church, I will rebuild your church for you.
Was H. Fletcher Brown black or white?
White.
I never knew that.
Brown Vocational High School was named after him, Vocational High School.
This guy,
did you know that?
He's a walking encyclopedia.
Yeah, I never knew that. I mean, that's why I said it's good to know this, but I'm sorry, go ahead.
Yeah. Well, okay, anyway, Bethel people said, thank you for your inquiry and your promise, but we will take care of it ourselves. So then he went to the
black community.
And Mr. Bill Parks told me this.
That's deep.
Then he said that he then went to the community and said, what does the black community want? They said, we want a YMCA. So he built the YMCA for us, and he also left an endowment. And I can remember as a 4-year-old in 1939 going to the 700 block of French Street to 709 French, which was the St. Michael's Day Nursery in a 3-story building, and I remember seeing the steel going up.
Wow.
1939 is when they
Now, how did Doc Hill fit in this? You remember Doc Hill?
Doc Hill.
Well, see, okay, Doc was born in South Carolina, and he lost both of his parents at a very early age. I don't know whether he was 4 years old when he lost both of his parents. So Mrs. Marie Trail, who lived at 417 East 10th Street, a couple of doors from Eddie B's barbershop, she went down and brought him back. Well, he had two brothers, so she brought all 3 of them back, and she raised them. And I went to Easy Church where they were going. And she was a teacher. And during the summer, Mr. Robert V. Nelson, who used to coach the basketball team at Howard and was a shop teacher, the 2 of them would be at Kirkwood Park once it was for blacks, because first the blacks couldn't attend that part.
Wow, you know, and then when we talk about the history of politics, you know, just in the city, I mean, the sit-ins, right? Wasn't Dutch Burton a part of that?
Yeah. Well, what happened? Right there at 9th and
Woolworths.
It was across from Woolworths. Right there at 9th and Shipley. There's on the corner. You see the what's the name of the coffee shop, the donuts and so forth.
Dunkin' Donuts.
Dunkin' Donuts. In the basement of that garage, it was built with federal funds. In the basement of that garage, there was a restaurant.
Right.
Dutch Burton, who was a city council person, took Mrs. Ella Butler, who just passed recently, and they went there to have dinner, and they were refused. So he got Lawyer Redding to take the case, and they went all the way to the Supreme Court.
I don't want to cut you off, but Who was the lady now? I mean, see, she's
Ella
a part of
Bu-
history.
Ella Butler.
And she
Ella
just
Butler.
passed?
Yeah.
And her husband also.
Yeah.
Skip Butler. Oh, yeah.
He has
Oh,
a
yeah.
printing shop. In fact,
Wow.
Stein is
Skip
still
had
there.
one of the first black printing press right there at 10th and Lumber Street.
Yeah.
Oh,
Wow.
He did all the
It's-
posters
it's
for the
still there.
dances and flyers and all that. Skip Butler did
Wow.
The sign
Oh,
is
yeah.
still there.
Yeah.
And that's Tempin.
Tenth and Lumber.
Tenth and Lumber.
Ain't that
Right across
something?
from the church. Right across from the
Their
church.
house was there, and they had an entranceway around on 10th Street where you go down.
So
to
we
the
just lost
basement.
history again.
Yeah.
Yes.
I mean,
Yeah.
I don't mean to keep stopping you guys, but
Yeah, no,
I mean,
no.
this is so much stuff. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
Yeah. And so what happened? He was refused, and Lawyer Redding took the case, and it went all the way to the Supreme Court, and it helped to get us the public accommodations because it was built with federal funds. The building was built with
I'm getting
federal funds.
While he's talking, I mean, it's like the camera's on me and this guy's talking. Make it look like I'm a ventriloquist. All right, good. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
I mean, because this is good stuff. We can't be
Yeah.
playing around
Yeah,
tonight.
it
But
is.
good.
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
Yeah, he got public accommodations, and actually also, what's this? Theonius Monk. He was passing through the state of Delaware with a white lady. I think she was a princess or something in his car, and he was arrested. So that went to the court.
What about the movie theaters?
Okay, now let me tell you about the movie. First of all, there were more theaters for blacks than the average person knows, because I didn't know.
Only one I remember was Hopkins.
Yeah,
That's
see-
the one I
see,
knew. was
Hopkins, what was that at?
Okay,
Ninth and French,
That's
what,
10 French. I mean,
Wow.
810 French.
I never heard of that. I only heard of the Warner and I think the town or something
Yeah,
like that.
no, okay, here's what's
And
happening.
that was owned by blacks.
Here's-
Hopkins, owned by
okay.
blacks. Oh, yeah.
Okay, here's
The Hopkins family.
Okay, okay. Let me tell you something about that. Okay, first of all, John O. Hopkins Sr., who holds a record for being a city council person in Wilmington, 42 years,
Republican.
and he was in charge of everything involving the black community.
Hold up.
Anything the blacks
Now, I never heard that.
The blacks
Yeah.
went through John Hopkins
Yeah, senior.
years ago.
So
Bus Hopkins was his son.
So,
and this guy was in city council for 40 years?
42. His name's on. He
Very powerful.
he has all those panels there with all the councils from
Way
that
back.
has all the names. You'll see him in there. He's been 42 years. He was
Black
responsible
folks
for
had
that.
some power back
But
then.
what I was gonna say though,
Oh, yeah.
where Hotel DuPont is, there was a black housing in part of that area, black housing, and in fact, the Riley Square originally was a reservoir. Then it was the site of the Newcastle County Courthouse. Then they finally made it the square. Man,
This cat goes back, man.
But this is some good stuff, though. I mean, like, and just even,
Yes.
I'm being very honest,
Yeah.
I mean, just because it's new, I know Jim Baker has served for like 30 years total.
Right.
Yeah.
And I thought that he probably was the longest serving black, but you
No,
saying somebody served for 42 years.
Yeah.
That's a long
Republican.
time.
Okay.
A Republican, that's it, yeah.
Okay,
Say
now,
what was it?
I might have made a mistake. It might be 32 years. I think it's
Okay.
32. I think I made a mistake.
What
32
about
years.
the Belvedere area? What was that? I remember as a little guy.
32 years.
What was that? Right up, what's that coming to DuPont Highway 13? Wasn't that like a housing development over there?
Belvedere?
Not Dudley. Well, I'm thinking about Dudley. I'm thinking Dudley.
Millside.
Millside. That's what I'm
Millside.
saying.
Yeah.
Wasn't that like a housing development there?
Yeah,
back in the day?
see, what it was,
old army barracks
it was
or something.
temporary housing from World War II. You know, the services.
Public housing type thing.
There's a thing saying that there's no such thing as so permanent as a temporary building. You know, they built them during the war effort, and use them for years and years and years and years.
Wow.
But they had a school there at Millside, and it only went to maybe the 8th grade, and then I think the students in that had to come to Howard because it was doing segregation.
And let me ask you a
Senator
question.
Howard used to be the milkman.
Oh, yeah.
Your dad.
My dad was the milkman for Millside.
Wow.
Everybody had those outside their homes that got milk,
Right.
had the milk boxes outside their homes. And Dad, in the summertime, we would go with him because we'd swing around by Steve's store there where Snow's was and go in his bread box and we'd steal some sticky buns
Right.
and donuts and stuff. But anyway, Dad would walk in town. I just talked about Sammy about how Dad didn't have a car a lot of times. High Point Dairy
Yeah,
was over at around 12th and, what was it, Orange or so, by the Temple, over in that area.
That was
Where
Cloverdale.
Pop Allen had his parking lot later on.
Clover. Yeah, it was right there at 10th. It was right there at 12th and Orange, and right across from it was Shiloh Church. That was the original site.
Get his milk truck about 4 o'clock in the morning and come back and get me and Johnny. We'd roll out with him.
Wow.
And Dad would go down each little street in Millside. Johnny on one side of the truck and me on another, putting the milk in the old milk bottles.
So I always thought that Henrietta Johnson Hearn was the first African American in the House of Representatives, but she wasn't.
Oh, no. Oliver Fonzville was there before Henrietta. Matter of fact, that's who she beat, Oliver Fonzville. And who else was there? Somebody else. But Dad was the first black.
Wow.
And then Oliver Fonzville. And see, like it was somebody.
Oh, your dad
else.
was a representative before senator?
Yes, Dad got
I never knew
elected
that.
when Paul Livingston came after Uncle Jim Winchester, as I remember.
Yeah, he was second.
As a Democrat, when the Democrats took over, he was part of Leo's crew, when Leo and all of them changed the city of Wilmington to Democrat. And Paul was falling off asleep, coming in from Dover. And he had kind of wrecked and whatnot. So Leo and them decided to get him a driver, somebody to go down and whatnot. So they put Dad on as an attaché in the House of Representatives to drive Paul down and back. Okay? And then after Paul passed and had 1 year left on his unexpired term, that's when the party Leo and them run Dad for state representative in '63. Dad was in the House of Representatives for 1 year. And then in '64, when Senator Raleigh died, he run for senator and won Senate and was there for 30 years.
Let me ask you guys a couple really quick questions. I'm gonna open up the phone lines because we're going to be going on all night, and
Some heavy stuff,
I know
man.
people are going to
Taking
be
us
coming and
back,
help us out with some stuff. Let me ask you two things. First of all, let's deal with West Side, South Wilmington, East Side, whatever. Were there a number of black-owned stores, cleaners, and all that kind of good stuff, like a lot of businesses?
Yeah, it's been a history before my time.
I remember Busy Bee, for instance.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Wilmington had many morticians and beauticians.
Right.
And see, Wilmington had a lot of tannery, leather manufacturing and so forth. So that's why I have so much tainted soil around here and so forth.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
As you go now, like you go into Barbara Hicks's house in Buttonwood, there's a lot where they be selling sandwiches and things and chicken and all that lot there. That lot used to be a large grocery store, a very large grocery store, which was very successful. That was built and run by George Pendleton's father, Pendleton Oil Company, down on right down, I think George Pendleton lived in the house that Mr. and Mrs. Bell, the undertaker, and them have right now. No, that was Dr. Brown's house. That was Dr. Brown.
Yeah.
Pendleton was right down the street.
Wow.
George Pendleton, the longshoreman that had the brown oil truck you see around years ago, his dad built that grocery store.
Is this fellow with freckles?
Yes,
Yeah.
yes, George Pendleton.
And let me ask
He's
you,
passed now. These guys are gone.
so let's talk about the education part. A lot of students used to have to come from Dover, Milford, and all those kind of places, like hitchhike or walk to go down to Howard High School.
There was only one high school in the state. Actually, when Oliver Otis Howard gave $5,000 to the city to help with the education of minorities, they had to start at the first grade at elementary school, and eventually they had from K to 12th grade, but they kept adding rooms to the house because the building was only four rooms, had 4 rooms at the beginning, and they just kept adding rooms to the place because the grades were going. But the problem was the male African Americans got very little education because there was a lot of farming in Wilmington at that time, And,
Farming in Wilmington?
Yes, it was rural. It was rural. Yeah, you
Bring that back.
I'm not seeing all that.
it was rural. In fact, when they built the buildings up there near the hotel at 8th and King, I used to work in the on the way building, and I could be on the 5th floor and see the New Jersey, across the Delaware River. But then when they would build those buildings there, it blocked that out.
Well, hey, Alvin, if you get a chance, if you could put the number up, ladies and gentlemen, we would like to take calls. Like if you really have some intelligent questions, or if you could give us some history, maybe your mother, grandmother, grandfather, or someone played basketball, boxed, or something that we haven't talked about, because this is our let's show a history of the
Let me ask
Go ahead,
something.
do whatever you want.
I'm kind of picking his
No, go
brain.
your own way.
When I was 16 years old, out of school for the summer, for several different summers, I worked at the old Layton home.
Oh yeah.
The old Layton home, Norman, was a lady director named Mrs. Pounds, and I was one of the custodians for the summer. And Layton home was located at 35th and Market Street, right across from Brooks Armor Car. And they later built it, as you know, down there on 8th and 8th and Walnut. But I remember blacks having a lot of business, and then speed it up a little bit to the riots. Okay. After the riots, when the mom and pop stores got run out of business, every one of those stores got taken over by African American, by black folks. Scotty had the store across from Eden Park, you may remember.
I don't remember. When you were 16, I wasn't doing. Let's get something straight here. But go ahead.
Scotty had the store over in Southbridge. Bugged me to death to open up one over in Riverside. They had the big AMP right across the market, right where
Never knew that.
Where Nixon uniform was. That used to be an AMP, but they got burned out. 27th and 27th and Claymont, North Claymont, across from Riverside Project, was Jack's big grocery store.
Wow.
Jack got burnt out. So it was no store around, so I opened up a store back on Todd's Lane, right up from Ray Evans Club, and did groceries for a while, made a lot of money, drove
Ray Evans was a
nuts.
pretty prominent guy too, wasn't he?
Ray
yeah,
Evans
he was a
had the
classmate.
liquor store on 30th Street, and then Ray Evans had the club down back of 30th Street. That's where everybody went in town, hung out, pretty much. Those that hung out.
Ain't that something?
And
that
We had a black guy on the radio, Rosie G, was with WILM, playing the latest of the songs that everybody liked.
Rosie G.
Rosie G went
Somebody's on the phone.
WILM from 12 to 7 in the morning.
How you doing? Welcome to the show.
Hi, Norman. I am thoroughly enjoying the show. I lived on the west side so far you would think that I lived in another country. But one thing I do remember is when Dad used to take me with him when he went to the podiatrist on 10th Street, Dr. Gulpin. So you guys could talk about Dr. Gulpin a little bit, but I am thoroughly enjoying the show. I really appreciate it, and I'm going to hang up and listen some more.
Okay, thank you. Dr. Gulpin?
Yeah, 206 East 10th Street was his address, because there was a lot of famous people lived in that house.
Wow.
A lot of famous people.
See, I didn't even know that. How you doing? Welcome to the show.
How you doing? I just want to bring to your attention some martial arts people that you probably need to mention. Jock Taylor.
Oh yes.
And an artist by the name of Mr. Loper.
Yes.
Loper.
He died.
And also, when you said Mr. Loper, Mr. Loper was also the famous artist, right?
Yes.
Right, and his son, one of his sons juniors.
Jock Taylor was one of the first guys who really brought martial arts to the city, right?
Yes.
He was one of the best.
Yes.
I know Rashid would tell me about him a lot.
Yes.
And I like to bring to your attention by another, I think, is a historian person that put the black monument there. I think off right up down from
Wilson
Warner.
K. Smith.
Wilson Smith,
Wilson K. Smith.
Oh yes,
Coach Smith,
yes. The black soldier.
Yes.
He was, a person that maybe somebody needs to, speak about because.
Here's how that happened.
Yeah.
Mrs. Yvonne T. Jensen, who's deceased now, she was a teacher at Howard for years. She took her students on a trip to the cemeteries, and they saw these Civil War graves, and he said, "I don't see any black names here," and so forth. She said, "Well, I dare you to go and find out about them." So he spent about 13 years trying to get information on black soldiers and so forth, and getting support, trying to get money, getting support.
Ain't that nice?
So after 13 years, he finally succeeded. And what happened is they have a small exhibit down at Morgan State University.
At Morgan State, I didn't know
That's
that.
supposed to one at the Pentagon
And
too.
you know, we didn't
One
even
at the
talk
Pentagon.
about even like some of our jazz artists, like Millie Cannon.
Yeah.
I mean, Clifford Brown.
Yeah.
I mean, just
Lynn Winchester.
Lynn Winchester.
Yeah.
And you know,
Fantastic.
you know what? Matter of fact, they're having a dinner next Saturday. They're raising money for Millie Cannon Fund, like a scholarship fund.
yeah.
It's gonna be at the
Money
Money
Club.
Club,
Right.
like selling
Yeah,
dinners
right.
like from 12 until. You know why?
Stuff,
Because
man.
this is a
Powerful
2-hour show. I mean, forget the Oscars on this. How you doing? Welcome to the show. Hello?
Hello?
Yo, we here.
Yes, no one's mentioning anything about Mr. Naylor.
Oh.
Yeah, I mentioned him earlier. I mentioned him earlier with Sammy Congo, but we
I-
haven't mentioned him here.
I had a very intimate relationship with Mr. Naylor because I was a student manager for football, baseball, and basketball.
He was at Howard, right?
Yeah.
Yes.
And in fact, he graduated from Howard
Yeah.
in class 1920 and went to Lincoln University. And then he finished at Lincoln University and came back and taught in Newcastle. Then he went to West Philly. And what Mr. Johnson did when he came to Howard, he served as a principal for 35 years from 1924 to 1959.
Did that answer?
Also, yes, also, too, no